My guest today is Kin Lau, a longtime Arlington resident whose passion for learning has shaped both his career and our community. From challenging himself in a Harvard architecture program as a high school junior to studying at Syracuse, Kin's journey has been defined by curiosity and initiative. His international travels and decades of work designing projects across Greater Boston have left a lasting mark on neighborhoods and people alike. What sets Kin apart is his belief that learning never stops. As the current chair of the Arlington Redevelopment Board, he continues to learn from neighbors, public officials, his colleagues, and the built environment itself, and he continues to seek new ways to serve and grow. Kin's story shows that lifelong learning is about taking in and applying knowledge to build a better future for ourselves and for generations to come. Hello everybody, I'm James Milan and welcome to this, which is a series that we do here at ACMi about Arlington as a learning town. Our co-producer, Michael Armanius, is on a mission to make sure that Arlington can get designated as a learning town by UNESCO if at all possible, but even more importantly, basically just to delve and explore how many areas and how many different people are involved with what we call making Arlington a learning town. It's a place where lifelong learning is made possible, is enhanced, is eased by various mechanisms and organizations and people in town. And we have an excellent example of such joining us today. Kin Lau is his face, I'm sure, you will be very familiar with, as I am, from the fact that he appears and has for the last 11 years that he's been on Arlington's redevelopment board. He appears on our television channels a couple of times a week, usually for many, many weeks in the year. And as all board members do, Kin has taken time to consider what his words and his responses to the things before the board. And very oftentimes those very responses of his are invoked in further proceedings. So a wise man, certainly an active member of our community, and our guest today, Kin Lau, who, by the way, the current chair of Arlington's redevelopment board. So welcome.
Thank you, James.
I'm curious, before we get into the main body of the conversation, I just mentioned you're the chair. I know that that's a relatively recent, like you've stepped up to that relatively recently.
Yes.
How long is the term for that?
Every year you get the board votes on who they think is the next chair.
Okay, so it's not a rotating thing necessarily. It's really
no, it's not a rotating thing. The previous years, I just retired recently, so I've had more free time now. I didn't at the earlier years. Mm-hmm. I don't think I had enough. I didn't think I had enough time to devote to that position.
Yeah.
And since I've retired, I believe I do have enough time now.
Well, we'll see, right? Because I know your retirement was quite recently, last year, I think, 2025,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
So yes, I would certainly think that's a prudent decision because having watched, as I alluded to, a lot of proceedings in front of the ARB, the chair and all of you have a lot to do. So how you all managed to do that while holding on to full-time jobs as you did for the first 10 of the 11 years you've been there is a wonder in and of itself for me, but I think we'll table that for another time because today we do want to talk largely through the prism of this idea about lifelong learning and both how you might be a very good example of that, as I mentioned, but also what your own observations have been about that within this community, which you know very well. I know you didn't grow up in Arlington, right?
No.
You grew up in Brookline, maybe?
Yes. I was born in Hong Kong, and my parents immigrated here when I was fairly young. And we lived in South Boston till about the 3rd grade. And then that's when we moved to Brookline, and then I went through the Brookline school system and all, and then...
Yeah, so I was aware that you had graduated from Brookline High School, But I know that as we think about you and lifelong learning, it both extends forward from here and goes all the way back, at least to high school years, if not before. So tell us about your experience with this particular Harvard project or Harvard program, and how you, managed to get involved as a high school student.
You're referring to career discovery. This is a class, a summer class that was offered from Harvard for generally people with bachelor's degree thinking of getting a master's in architecture. Harvard has a master's program in architecture only. In high school, I think it was my junior year, my parents were, were pushing me to be a doctor, an engineer, or in some sort of computers. And I was thinking of something a little more artistic, and I was trying to combine some of that with some technical. And so my guidance counselor at the time said, hey, why don't you try this class? Because I've taken a lot of, well, most of it, the drafting classes and drawing classes in high school, so there was no more other classes for me to take. And they said, why don't you go and see what this class is and see if you can get in. So I applied for my summer of my junior year, and they accepted me, and I took the class. It's very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, were you in that class with otherwise people who were, as you said, had just received a bachelor's degree, were about to, et cetera? So in other words,
I was definitely one of the youngest students there. They actually interviewed me at the end of the summer, along with this other woman who was the oldest. She actually wanted to go back to school after her children had grown up and went on their own ways, and they had, they're empty nesters, and she wanted to become an architect. So she was the oldest taking that, and I was the youngest, and they were, they're asking us about, why we did it and how we liked the class and everything else like that. So yeah, it was just definitely. I don't think now I look back at it, did I get everything that was being presented for me? I would say I got maybe 80%. All right, tried hard, but I believe in architecture it has a lot to do more with life experiences, and as a high school student, you haven't experienced life that much.
That's that's just what I was going to say as well, which is, I think most of us don't understand how much life experience itself can inform a very disparate, super broad number of prospective or potential professions. I went to law school after being out of after graduating from college and being out in the working world for 4 or 5 years or so. Very, very different experience for me than those who had come straight from undergrad for the exact same reason. And I imagine architecture also contains that, as you said, especially because, well, I'll let you speak to that.
No, I 100% agree with you. You don't see that many, well, I don't know of any child prodigy architects. Most good architects are, let's say in their 50s and older. They experienced life. They've traveled. They've seen things. They experienced things. They've done things, and I think that's a continuing thing that you have to keep on understanding. When I let's say when I went through college, I also traveled with my parents. They wanted to go back to the old country with my grandmother, so I got the experience living in China for a couple months, and that was really eye-awakening. So it's because you're learning a different culture, different ways of looking at it, and then also in college, they offered a study abroad program, which I highly recommend to any college students. They should do that. And I studied in Florence for a year, and that was very eye-awakening. When I was working as an architect, for Arrow Street, which I did a lot of traveling and for different projects all over the country. And you experience different things, how people build, what people are looking at. They're just differences just within America, just the Northeast versus down the South, the West, everything.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying really is that you can get your inputs from all kinds of places.
Yes.
And all kinds of experiences, and those things are going to, the things you do take in, you may be able to kind of identify them very concretely, but more likely they're just going to be working away in some intangible manner on your vision for a building, for a project, for somebody else's idea for a project, etc.
Yes, I agree with you there quite a bit. When I traveled to China with my folks, it was during the summer, and on my 5th year of my education, you do your thesis, and I based my thesis on housing, and the looking at how you can apply Far East concept of housing into American housing. And that's from my experiences of traveling and seeing what was there. And before I did the research and everything else, but just experiencing it. So I think that experience is critical.
Yeah. So one thing, let's say, to extract or to share with the audience from what we've already been talking about is really just go and try and do as many things as you can, try and get to different places, pay attention to what's going on around you, and have some confidence that that is going to manifest through the work that you do, again, even if you can't point to it directly.
Yeah, I think that kind of stuff is critical. I mean, I remember in college, one of my professors said, look, carry a sketchbook with you, and whatever you do, take some time off every day and sketch things that you find interesting. So if you're in a square and you see a whole bunch of activity in life, what's there that's interesting to you? Draw it. And that is a way of learning. And I've gotten away from that a little bit recently just because of business and everything else, but you know, I thought that was quite experience for those 4 or 5 years I did that.
Right. I assume you adopted the practice for a while until again you either ran out of time or just got involved with other things. But I'm sure again another kind of nice piece of pretty concrete advice to be able to take forward for folks listening in. So that's great. You touched on being at Arrow Street. I would just like you to take us quickly through your professional career. You also mentioned that you just recently retired. So we're talking about a good span of time. Just tell us, where you were and what you were doing.
Well, I think my career is somewhat unique, as I only worked in 3 jobs in my, say, 40-odd years of working. I started at Arrow Street as a summer intern, and when I graduated, they asked me back. So I started at Arrow Street, and when I left Arrow Street, I was an associate principal after 23 years, and I basically grew up in a company, or the company grew with me, or we both.
And what kinds of work what specifically, were you doing? What kind of architecture work?
Mainly commercial buildings. I did a lot with the company on shopping centers. The Cambridge Side Galleria, North Shore Mall, South Shore Mall, Burlington Mall.
All right. Very well known.
Those are the ones around here. Okay. I worked on the Providence Mall. Connecticut Brass Mills. So forth. I don't want to keep on going on about that. Then also I did a lot of office buildings that was in downtown, and some housing projects. Whereas in the Seaport area, one of the first big housing projects in the Seaport before it is now.
I understand exactly what you mean. I've been living here long enough to know when that was a rarity down there.
You used to be able to park at Pier 4 for $5 a day and go into the city.
I did that on more than one occasion.
Yes.
I got to say.
You don't do that anymore.
Not a chance.
So I did that, and then I decided to try something else, and I met a partner, Ling Lu. He was MIT PhD, who worked in acoustics or with Sony. But he wanted to go into housing development too. So we looked into system-built housing. We did a lot of modular construction because I thought that might be a way of new way of looking at housing. So did
with
that.
the idea of kind of making it more
Making
affordable,
affordable,
accessible, et
yes,
cetera,
because when you look at how just a basic quick one, what are the contributing costs for housing? The land and construction, and then the time, how long you have to build the project, because you're carrying the cost of the land, you're carrying the cost of the construction loan, and so forth.
And you're paying the price, you're paying the salaries of all the people who are doing the work as well, right?
So, but if you can reduce that time down and increase the quality and so forth like that, so you do off-site construction, factories, modular buildings, stuff like that. We tried doing that for a while, and
at a time when that was relatively new or rare, or was it already pretty well established as a possibility?
it was starting to develop. It wasn't that. It still hasn't really taken on that strong yet. I see a lot of people say, "Oh, we can do out of storage containers." Those metal storage containers. But there's a whole bunch. I can go on ever about that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of goods and pluses and minuses to that stuff. So we tried that for a while, and
kind of set up your own company to do so. Basically.
yes, we had, and we did about 4 or 5 projects in Cambridge about that, and it ran its course for a while. And then all of a sudden, I was getting further up in my career, and I said, you know what, my runway is getting shorter. So do I want to be taking this kind of risk? Because there's quite a bit of risk when you're a developer. People think, oh, you just get build a building and you're going to make a lot of money.
It comes right in right away. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's far from that. Okay. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it. It takes a lot of risks, and I want to get away from that. And so
you went to your third act.
I started working for another company that is a consulting company that they would hire me to help them build their buildings, as what I was doing, but I actually was not the owner. So I did a lot of that stuff.
So considerably less risky, but also still
doing exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
A good example of that was like Boston Med Flight. Boston Med Flight had a hangar where they had all their helicopters and ambulances, but they're a teaching facility too. But they're on the military side of Hanscom, so they wanted to move onto the public side of Hanscom. So, but they are an ambulance service essentially, with doctors and everything else. They're not developers,
right?
So they hired us to help them develop a new hangar for them. So we developed a hangar for them where they had 4 helicopters, I think 4 ambulances, and a teaching facility for them. And they also combined all their administrative into the one hangar. So that's my last thing I did, And that was for a company called C3, which then was later bought out by a company called Rimkus, which is a national consulting company.
So, I mean, that is a good variety of work. You were mentioning that, you had a pretty distinctive career in that way, including only having the 3 long-term jobs in a sense. But also relatively different, it seems to me, from the kinds of things that people are coming to you on the Arlington Redevelopment Board with ideas for what it is that they want to do, or a new project that they might want to develop or something like that. So let me let me kind of focus us from now forward on your work with the ARB and ask you again, through the prism of lifelong learning and continuous learning, let's just put it that way, what kind of stuff did you have to learn yourself once you started at the ARB in 2015?
Okay, I guess let me start with what I took as from my experience as my earlier days working for Arrow Street. You work for owners, and you wanted a consistent set of documents and to run the project on schedule, on time. As a developer, you do the same thing. You want to make the investor happy by building a project on schedule, on budget, and on time. As someone on the redevelopment board, you take at all that stuff because you want that, because if a developer or someone's not making any money or they can't build it fast enough, they're not going to build anything. So that defeats redevelopment. But you have another bag that you take on, which I've learned, is how does that align with the town or city's agenda or goals? Right now we're trying to grow more moderate to affordable housing in Arlington. And how do you do that? So you're trying to encourage that. So that's another thing you have to add on to what you had before. They still have to make money. They still have to do the projects on time, but also you want to align it with with the goals of the town. And then how do you encourage that with the developers? By giving them bonuses or whatever. You can't say you can only build affordable housing.
Right. But you can build incentives. You can.
Yes, and that's how I believe it is a good way to encourage. You can't tell everybody to do anything that they don't want to do. You just encourage and say, here's opportunities. If you feel like our goals align, then let's do it together in a friendly way.
I think another piece that strikes me, pretty conspicuously about what is required through working with the redevelopment board that might not be true in different kinds of forms of architecture is the public input side of everything that you do. So in other words, as we mentioned in talking before we went on air, Arlington is a town in which people value their public input. They value their voice being heard. You guys have a significant audience at many of your meetings, and they are there to both hear what your deliberations are, but also to challenge, to beseech, to basically get answers for themselves, perhaps for specific projects that they are doing, but just as likely for something that is going to affect the neighborhood in their perspective, or the town in their perspective.
Yeah.
How has that been a learning thing for you? Just to have such a kind of a potential cacophony of voices, kind of making themselves heard as you try and do the work you're doing.
Well, when I was a developer, I presented projects in front of redevelopment boards, and so I had that experience on the other side. When I joined the board in Arlington, I discovered that the people in town are very vocal, more so than other parts of other towns that I have developed in. And so that was definitely a learning curve. And as I've been here my 11 years, I've learned there's quite a bit of agenda to to the people who are vocal. I would say the majority of the people are trying to understand what's going on and expressing their concerns. But there are a few that are just anti-development, stop any which way to stop that, which is fine. That's their opinion, and they have the right to say that. So you just got to take all of it in and understand what the bigger picture is. And I think the goal that we have on the redevelopment board, I don't know, we're getting a little far away from this, but is to encourage growth in a way that aligns with the town master plan. Okay, and that master plan is more housing, more affordable housing, and my personal thing is also like that I think is missing, that not that people speak up for, is workforce housing.
Workforce housing,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
We hardly ever hear about that.
And that's one of my pet things I try to champion. You know, I mean, where does the policeman live? Where's the teacher live? Where's the fireman live? They can't live in Arlington. Or aging in place. Like if you grew up in Arlington. My son went through all the school system here and grew up here. When he gets out of college and goes to work, can he live in Arlington? I don't think so right now.
Right.
Let's say when I get older and I want to downsize. Well, actually, not me, because I don't have a very big house. But let's say someone else has a big house and want to downsize. There's nothing like that. That's that much to offer in Arlington, you know. So that's something that I want.
So you have to kind of combine both your experience and what you understand and what you know from that experience, and then take the input of folks who are kind of expressing community values. And you want to be able to honor those. And then on top of that, you also have your own personal things that you want to champion.
Yes.
So that's quite a combination.
Yeah. But I think they all align. You know, I've talked to many of other board members. We don't necessarily agree all the time, which is great. But we have the same goals. We want to better the town. And how we see going about that might be a little different, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that the ARB is a good model for, I think, is respectful disagreement.
Yes.
Both between you and between you and those members of the community that you might be engaging with at different times. You're not always going to agree with what you're hearing, but you're always going to respect, or that's what I've noticed. Everybody on the board does
thank you.
that.
Yeah.
And you certainly do. You know, we're running out of time, but I want to still take a few minutes to ask you about a couple more things. And again, this relates to this idea of continuous learning. You have you've already mentioned just now a couple of personal values that you have through the work that you do, but I'm also wondering personally your passions, and particularly how you see nature and spending time in nature, or doing work that reflects what you've learned from nature, etc. Just talk a little bit about your passions, how they sustain you, but also how they fit into the idea of continuous learning. And then if there's anything specific to say about the role of nature in that, then I'd love to hear that too.
Well, I think it's important to look at it in a balanced way. And you got to take the balance of growth and development in nature. You can't have one without the other. And saying that, oh, we're losing tree canopy, or there's not enough trees around because of all this development. Well, then that's fine, but let's try to balance it away so that we don't preclude development because of this. We don't push development so much that you preclude looking at trees or saving trees or so forth like that. You know, I love having tree-lined streets where, you know, there's some shade and so forth like that, but not everywhere. and that's okay, because you got to have the balance of the two. So that's how I see that, and I just see. I like to take time sometimes to say I'll sit in the park. I live in the Heights, and Robbins Park is one of the things I like looking at. And you have the big view of the city and everything else, and you envision yourself saying, you know what, I'm only a small cog. What's going on in here in life? And so, you know, what you want to do is leave your impression here and say, hey, my life mattered. This is what I've done. You know, I did this building buildings. I did this managing buildings, or did this approving or guiding other people to build buildings. That's, to me, is important. Is that a way of answering your?
Absolutely, but and also it segues into the last thing I want to ask you, which is. The fact is, the work that you do here on behalf of the community is work that you can see everywhere you go.
Yes.
And I know you go.
Yeah.
All over town and check in on projects as they're going. Check in on projects even after they are theoretically done, as in have been approved by the board, and the board's gone as far as it can go. Tell us about that part of your commitment to the work that you do.
Well, I do. For better or worse, I'll have a cigar from time to time. And the only time I'm allowed to smoke a cigar is actually in my car. My wife won't let me smoke in the house. So I'll have a cigar and drive around town, and I'll look at things. I'll look at potentials where I think this part of town could be. We can do this and this, and that would make it nicer. Or we looked at this project impacts and look at how's it being used. Was it successful? Was it not successful? Or projects being built? What's going on here? I eat out with my son and my wife in town. We don't go anywhere else. We eat the diner. We go to restaurants, and so this town is part of me, and I do go around seeing things, and
Well, I really like that little, just your anecdote. I think works really well in a particular way, which is we're talking about lifelong learning. You are continuously learning by going around and looking at the things that you could see, testing your mind to imagine what could be in a particular place. Again, checking on the progress of projects you know well, making sure that things are going along the lines that you understand them to, and all that. All while having a cigar, which you enjoy, and which, thanks to your wife, means you got to be out on the road in order to be able to do that. But that idea of combining joy, personal joy, with the learning, in a very seamless and organic way.
well, it's part of life.
Yeah, right.
It's not. I got to do this. It's just how I live life. Is that way? That's why it could happen together.
That is a great place to end. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I have been speaking with Kin Lau. He is now retired architect, professionally speaking, but long from retired in terms of being a member of Arlington's redevelopment board. You can see him at work almost any time by tuning into the government channel here at ACMi, because we replay him and his colleagues all the time. So we appreciate you very, very much, you sharing your thoughts around these things with us. We hope to talk to you some more in the future. We wish you best of luck on the redevelopment board, which is no easy task. We've kind of explored that before with colleagues of yours as well, just kind of digging into the work of the board and just how taxing and rewarding it can be. So let us hope for more continued service from you, and let us also thank you for that in advance.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Thank Kin for joining us. I'm James Milan. We'll see you next time.